When I pushed the divorce agreement in front of Ethan, he was replying to Vivian's text message without even lifting his head. Sign it. My nails tapped crisply on the solid wood table. While I can still talk to you calmly. Ethan finally looked up, his gaze sweeping from my new Valentino high heels to my Birkin bag all bought by myself. He suddenly smiled, the kind of effortless smile I had seen for 20 years. Anya, he said, twirling his wedding ring, just because I came back early to accompany Vivian for a checkup. She had a hemoglobin level of 6 grams and needed an emergency blood transfusion. I interrupted him, pulling out the hospital report from my bag and slapping it on the table. What a coincidence, the record I found shows 8.9 grams, just ordinary anemia. His expression finally changed. I was too familiar with this micro-expression, his jawline tightening for 0.5 seconds, his reaction when caught. The last time I saw it was at our wedding when Vivian accidentally spilled red wine on my wedding dress. You investigated her? Ethan's voice turned cold. Investigated? I scoffed. Ethan, don't forget whose family holds the largest share in the city center hospital. He stood up abruptly, his tailored suit brushing against the table. I suddenly remembered last year's board meeting when he stood up to shield me from a toast. I thought he was so handsome then. Now I realize that the toast was meant for Vivian's seat. The office door was suddenly pushed open. Vivian walked in wearing the latest season's fashion. Interestingly, that dress was the style I rejected at the brand salon last month. Ethan. Her voice was as sweet as honey. The physical examination department is urging us. I grabbed my bag to leave but was held back by a cold hand. The diamond ring on Vivian's fingertip pressed painfully against me. It was the Shin family's heirloom cut. Sister Anya, her eyes were teary, there's really nothing between Ethan and me. I slowly withdrew my hand and picked a short hair from her shoulder. This morning, before Ethan left, I personally tied his Windsor knot. Miss Vivian, I smiled as I flicked the hair away, next time you sneak a bite, remember to wipe your mouth. Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. Anya. I looked down at his hand, veins bulging, and remembered how last night those hands were coaxing Vivian over the phone not to be afraid of the blood test. How ironic, last week when I was hospitalized for gastric bleeding, he didn't even glance at my medical records. By the way, I shook him off and threw a velvet box from my bag. Your family's lousy ring. The emerald ring in the box clattered against the corner of the table, just like my 20 years of infatuation, shattered cleanly and decisively. Before the elevator doors closed, I heard Vivian sobbing, "It's all my fault." Through the gap, I saw Ethan bending down to pick up the ring, a coffee stain on the back of his suit that was from the last Blue Mountain coffee I made for him. My phone vibrated in my bag. It was Ethan's call. I directly opened the window and threw it out from the 38th floor, high enough to shatter all youthful delusions. As I walked out of the building, the sunlight was just right. 20 years of childhood sweethearts, 5 years of marriage. I touched the ring mark on my finger and suddenly laughed out loud, realizing that even the air smelled like Blue Mountain coffee after leaving him. When I turned off the computer, the city lights were already on outside. I rubbed my sore neck. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the neon lights of the CBD were lit up, and the whole city was entering night mode. I unlocked my phone, and Vivian's Facebook post was prominently at the top, brought for a checkup for the nth time due to anemia. In the photo, the hand wearing the wedding ring was all too familiar. I had personally trimmed those nails last week. I chuckled lightly, my fingertip pausing on the screen for 2 seconds before decisively swiping away. A message from 7 hours ago lay quietly in the notification bar. Booked the Red Grape Hotel for tonight, will accompany you for dinner. How interesting. After accompanying his white moonlight to the doctor, now he remembers to have dinner with me? That French restaurant I love used to be his go-to place to coax me. I tapped on Ethan's profile and unhesitatingly pressed add to blacklist. The phone chimed crisply, as if putting a full stop to this relationship. On the desk, our wedding photo was still in the frame. I turned it face down, picked up my coat, and prepared to leave. The assistant knocked and came in. Anya, do you need me to order dinner for you? No need, I said, picking up my bag and heading to the elevator. Tonight, I'm going home to accompany my parents. When I pushed open the door, the crystal chandelier in the living room was dazzlingly bright. My mother put down her teacup, frowning slightly. Why do you look so pale? Did you quarrel with Ethan? Too much work at the company, didn't rest well. I kicked off my high heels and stepped barefoot on the cool wooden floor. My father looked up from his financial magazine. Hire a few more assistants. That boy Ethan is efficient, you can learn from him. My hand holding the teacup paused. Mom, Dad, Ethan and I are preparing to separate. The teacup clinked crisply against the saucer. My father slammed the magazine shut. Did he bully you? I'll call the Shin family right now. It's not about who's right or wrong, I said, looking directly into my father's eyes. Business is business, the cooperation between our families won't be affected. My mother hesitantly held my hand. Her palm was warm and dry, reminding me of when I was a child and fell. Scraping my knee, she would hold my hand gently and say, "It doesn't hurt." Have you thought it through? My father finally sighed. My phone vibrated at the right moment. My best friend sent a location, Blue Bay cocktail party. The German investor you're looking for is here. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and smiled back at the entrance. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. My mother stuffed a piece of almond crisp into my hand. Don't overwork yourself. As the night breeze brushed my cheek, I took a bite of the almond crisp. The sweet, rich flavor melted on my tongue. Turns out, days without Ethan, even the evening breeze felt free. At the Blue Bay cocktail party, the crystal chandeliers refracted fragmented light spots. I had just popped a French fry into my mouth when I heard familiar teasing laughter from the next booth. Ethan, out having fun and still glued to your phone? A slick voice rang out. Which beauty requires our Ethan to personally coax her? Who else? Ethan's voice carried a helpless indulgence, the little ancestor at home. Miss Anya has quite the temper, the other scoffed. What's the reason this time? The Italy trip. I came back early to accompany Vivian for a checkup. Ethan's wine glass lightly tapped the table. She was. That's it? The other exaggeratedly drawled. If you ask me, Vivian would be a better wife, gentle and sensible. I picked up my champagne and turned to leave, my high heels clicking crisply on the marble floor. Anya. My best friend Sophie hurried over. The German client is waiting for you in the VIP area. The crystal lights at the Blue Bay cocktail party made the champagne glasses shimmer. I had just taken a sip of wine when I heard an exaggerated gasp from behind. Ah. I'm so sorry. Vivian's red wine splashed unerringly onto my Valentino gown, the deep red stain quickly spreading on the silver-gray silk. She covered her mouth in panic, her eyes instantly filling with tears. Sophie stepped forward quickly. Miss Vivian, our Anya is meeting with the German investor right now. Do you know how much this dress? I really didn't mean it. Vivian suddenly raised her voice, attracting the attention of the surrounding guests. Her tears fell just right. Don't you rich people always bring spare dresses? Just change into another one. I watched her performance coldly as the red wine dripped down the hem onto my Jimmy Choo high heels. Miss Vivian, I began calmly. Firstly, having a spare dress is my habit, not an obligation. Secondly, is this how you rich people bully others? Vivian interrupted me suddenly, her voice trembling. Just because I accidentally spilled some wine, you have to be so aggressive? She looked around, successfully drawing more attention. I know I can't compare to you heiresses. I chuckled lightly and raised my hand to signal her to stop. First, this is Chateau Lafite, not some wine. Second, I pointed to the departing German client, that is the investor Zhou Group has been anticipating for 3 months. Third, Anya. Ethan appeared behind Vivian at some point, his brows furrowed. Vivian immediately hid behind him as if finding a backer, sobbing, Ethan, I just wanted to greet Sister Anya, I didn't expect. Didn't expect your hand to suddenly cramp? Sophie sneered. Such a coincidence to spill it on our Anya? Ethan's gaze lingered on my ruined dress for a moment, then he turned to me and said, Anya, that's enough. Vivian has already apologized. I leisurely took out a wet wipe from my handbag and wiped the wine stains on my fingers. Ethan, may I ask in what capacity are you speaking? I looked up at him. Ex-husband? Or Miss Vivian's spokesperson? There were a few suppressed gasps around. Vivian's face turned pale instantly, and Ethan's pupils contracted sharply. Waiter, I snapped my fingers, please take me to the changing room. Before leaving, I turned back and smiled at Vivian. By the way, you said we rich people are bullying you, right? I calmly took out my phone. Then why not let everyone see the surveillance footage to see who is really bullying whom? Vivian's expression froze instantly. I turned gracefully, leaving behind a stir. The red wine was still dripping, but my steps didn't hesitate at all. I didn't mean it. Vivian lowered her head, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. We're all friends, it's not a big deal. Sophie laughed outright. Not a big deal? Anya has been following this German investor for a whole 3 months, for Zhou Group's overseas acquisition worth billions. You tell me how big a deal it is? Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist. I noticed his brows slightly furrowed, a flash of panic in his eyes. I have a personal relationship with Klaus, I can help you reschedule. How much is Ethan's relationship worth? I shook off his hand and sneered. Why don't you sign a $1 billion guarantee agreement on the spot? He softened his tone and leaned closer. The investor didn't get angry, we can reschedule another day. His peripheral vision swept over Vivian. Don't involve innocent people in our conflicts. I almost laughed out loud. Is a billionaire investor your family's servant, to be summoned at will? My gaze passed over Vivian's reddened eyes. Ethan, with your ability to twist the truth, it's a pity you're not a lawyer. Ethan. Vivian suddenly tugged at his sleeve, her voice choked with tears. I'll compensate Anya with 10 dresses. Her legs went weak as if to kneel. Or I. Save it, I interrupted her performance. This trick of yours, pretending to retreat to advance. Anya. Ethan's voice suddenly turned cold. Vivian's tears fell just in time. Ethan turned to the assistant and ordered, go get the spare dress from the car. Then he softened his voice to me, I'll introduce a few investors to you in a couple of days. Keep it for your Miss Vivian, I said, picking up my bag and calling Sophie. Zhou Group doesn't need this kind of charity. Behind me came a low mutter, humph, such a temper. I didn't look back, my high heels clicking out a string of crisp sounds. The cocktail party lights stretched my shadow sharp and long, the red wine stain blooming into dark flowers on the hem of my dress. I'm sorry, Anya. As soon as Sophie got in the car, she grabbed her hair in frustration. If I had known we'd run into that pair of scumbags, I would never have let you come. I rolled down the window, letting the night breeze dissipate the perfume scent from the cocktail party. I should be the one thanking you. My phone screen lit up, and the reply email from the German investor was prominently displayed. Klaus has scheduled a detailed discussion at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Sophie turned her head sharply. It's done? It's done. I turned off the screen. We're not the ones who did wrong, why should we pay for others' stupidity? As the car crossed the river bridge, I suddenly spoke. This morning, I mentioned divorce to Ethan. Sophie's fingers froze on the steering wheel. Anya. She hesitated. To be honest, no one in our circle would believe. Believe what? I chuckled lightly. That Anya would be willing to leave Ethan? In the rearview mirror, my reflection overlapped with the neon lights outside the window. Memories of that winter when I was 15 suddenly flooded back. I was cornered by 3 thugs in an alley, and Ethan charged in swinging a brick. His forehead was cut open with a gash, but he still smiled at me and said, just marry me in the future. That day, the snow was heavy, I supported him as we walked home. The blood drops on the snow looked like a string of rubies, and our clasped hands were frighteningly hot. Later, he had a scar on his forehead, and I secretly drew 27 hearts in my diary. Everyone thinks I can't live without him. I rubbed the edge of my phone, even I believed it for so many years. Sophie suddenly braked sharply. On the crosswalk, a pair of middle school students dashed across holding hands. The girl's ponytail flew, and the boy's backpack zipper wasn't even closed. Look, I pointed at the figures, doesn't it look like when he used to climb over the wall to bring me breakfast? The streetlights flickered, illuminating Sophie's reddened eyes. I patted the back of her hand. Don't worry, being inseparable was a childhood thing. I opened my phone's photo album and deleted the pictures with Ethan one by one. Now, I'm going to a place without him. The sound of pressing the delete key was soft as that snowy night in our youth when Ethan whispered in my ear, "My little princess, never grow up." I once truly believed I could be Ethan's little princess for a lifetime. Until half a year ago, his white moonlight, Vivian, came back from abroad. The first time I met this first love was on Ethan's birthday. I booked the entire floor of the Red Grape Hotel, covered the floor with roses, and even had the band play his favorite serenade. When the elevator doors opened, I was adjusting my pearl earrings in front of the mirror. In the mirror's reflection, there was a woman in a white dress hanging on Ethan's arm. "Ethan," the woman lowered her head, her voice so soft it gave me goosebumps. "Will Sister Anya be unhappy? You're on a date and bringing me along." "It's fine," Ethan casually smoothed her hair. "She's not that petty." When I turned around, my pearl earring slapped against my face, stinging painfully. "Knowing it would make others unhappy, you still came along?" I directly bypassed Ethan and stared at Vivian. "Does Miss Vivian enjoy participating in other people's married life so much?" Vivian shrank back like a startled rabbit. I didn't." Ethan frowned and called the waiter, "Take Miss Vivian back first." Then he turned to me with a different expression, "Is it necessary? Her family is all abroad, she just came back and is unfamiliar with the place. What's there to be angry about?" Ethan frowned at me, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "I don't like her," I said, staring at the elevator buttons as the numbers dropped one by one. "She's quite pitiful," Ethan's tone softened. "Her family has all emigrated, she just returned and is unfamiliar with the place. Grandma asked me to take care of her. Once she adapts, I won't bother anymore." I sneered. Over the past 6 months, Vivian has been like a walking troublemaker. When we were watching a movie, she fainted from low blood sugar. During a candlelight dinner, her house's water pipe burst. On our wedding anniversary, she was stalked and called the police in fear. Every time, Ethan would leave me and go, and when he came back, he would always say, "It's just a small favor, why are you jealous?" "I don't like her anymore." That was Ethan's most commonly used excuse. Everyone advised me to be magnanimous. "She's so pitiful, it's just helping out." Even my best friend said, "Ethan is good enough to you, don't fuss over these small things." But I just couldn't get over that hurdle in my heart. I threw tantrums. I smashed the watch he gave me, tore up the postcards Vivian sent. The worst time, I threw our wedding photo at him and mentioned divorce. And then? Then I tossed and turned in the dead of night, staring at my phone waiting for his message. In the end, it was always me who gave in first, sending him a message saying stomachache, waiting for him to come see me with porridge. I couldn't bear to part with him. I couldn't bear to part with the boy who shielded me with a knife at 15, couldn't bear to part with Ethan who knelt in the snow to propose at 20. Until last month, I naively thought we could go back to how things were. After another quarrel because of Vivian, Ethan unprecedentedly booked a trip for 2 to Italy. He kissed me by the Trevi Fountain in Rome and said he would make it up to me this time. I touched my still flat abdomen, thinking of telling him the news of my pregnancy during dinner. The next morning, Vivian's call came. "Ethan. I feel so dizzy." The voice on the other end was perfectly weak. I watched Ethan's jawline tighten instantly, and the pregnancy test stick in my hand fell to the ground. "It's just low blood sugar, can't you call an ambulance?" I heard my own voice trembling. His action of putting on his coat didn't stop. "She's alone in the country." "What about me?" I grabbed a pillow and threw it at him. "Am I safe alone in a foreign land?" Ethan left without looking back. The moment the hotel door closed, I stumbled after him and was dragged to the ground by a bag-snatching thug in the corridor. The sharp pain in my lower abdomen made me curl up. As blood flowed down my thighs, I was still thinking, when Ethan comes back, I must make him regret it. In the wailing of the ambulance siren, I clutched my phone and sent him 13 messages. From "something happened to me" to "when are you coming back," all sank without a trace. 3 days later, while in the hospital, I saw Vivian's Facebook post, "Thank you, someone, for taking care of me without rest," accompanied by a photo of Ethan's sleeping profile on the ward sofa. I touched my empty belly and suddenly laughed. Turns out, divorce was much simpler than I imagined. When I was discharged, I left the wedding ring on the bedside table in the ward. The sunlight shone through the curtains onto it, the refracted light stinging my eyes painfully. Just like my 20 years of infatuation, finally scorched by reality to the last inch. On the 15th day after submitting the divorce agreement to the court, it happened to be the 80th birthday of the Shen family's old lady. I chose a Chanel haute couture suit and replaced my diamond earrings with the simplest pearls, both polite and sufficiently indicative of my stance. After all, our families were old friends, and Grandma Zhou treated me like her own granddaughter. I had to give her this face. At the entrance of the banquet hall, I was arm in arm with my father when I ran into Ethan gracefully arriving with Vivian. Vivian was wearing the same style of dress I had seen at Paris Haute Couture Week last year, her fingers wrapped around Ethan's arm like a water snake. "Anya." Ethan's gaze fell on my bare ring finger. I nodded in greeting and walked straight to the main table. Behind me came Vivian's cloyingly sweet voice, "Brother Ethan, will Grandma like the jade I picked?" When taking seats, Ethan insistently squeezed past my cousin and sat next to me. The familiar scent of sandalwood mixed with whiskey wafted over, and his warm palm covered the back of my hand under the table. "It's been half a month," he lowered his voice, his thumb ambiguously rubbing the mark of my wedding ring. "Why is your temper so long this time?" I withdrew my hand and took a sip of champagne. "Does Ethan have a bad memory? We are already divorced." He chuckled lightly, his chest vibrating and making the seat tremble slightly. "All right, so how many days are we divorcing this time?" I ignored him and turned to discuss the newly opened gallery with my cousin. When the banquet reached its climax, Ethan's mother inevitably brought up that eternal topic again. "You two are not young anymore," Ethan's mother said, meaningfully looking at my belly. "It's time to consider the next generation." Vivian suddenly interjected, her voice so sweet it could drip honey. "Yes, brother Ethan has such excellent genes." She shyly lowered her head. "If it were me, I would definitely have several." The whole table suddenly fell silent. I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth. Under the crystal chandelier, Grandma Shen's silver hair was meticulously combed. She suddenly turned to me and asked, "How has Anya been feeling lately? Has anyone without eyes made you unhappy?" Vivian's chopsticks clattered onto the bone china plate. "She's throwing a tantrum at me," Ethan answered first, winking at Grandma. "I don't know when she'll forgive me." His hand under the table restlessly reached over again. "Grandma, please help me plead." I moved my knee away and focused on the Longjing shrimp in my bowl. Ethan's hand hung awkwardly in midair. "When to have children and how many is a big deal," Grandpa Zhou suddenly interjected. "You two need to plan well." Vivian immediately chimed in, "Yes, like in my family, it's just me, too lonely." Her eyes sparkled as she looked at Ethan. "In the future, I want to have at least 2, so siblings can take care of each other." "Miss Vivian," I put down my chopsticks and lightly wiped my mouth with a napkin. "The third dish on your right is braised soft-shelled turtle, good for nourishing een and kidneys." I smiled and scooped a spoonful for her. Eat more, after all, dreaming also requires energy. After the birthday banquet, Ethan lazily blocked me on the garden path. The moonlight stretched his shadow long, just crossing in front of my toes. "You've vented enough, release me from the blacklist," he said, shaking his phone, the screen lighting up and then going dark. I almost laughed out loud. "Ethan, the ink on the divorce agreement you signed hasn't even dried yet." I walked around him. "Can my ex-husband understand the situation?" He suddenly hugged me from behind, the familiar scent of sandalwood mixed with whiskey pressing down. "I've rebooked the Italy itinerary. This time, even if knives fall from the sky, I won't leave." His lips brushed my earlobe. If I don't add you back, how can I send you the travel guide? I elbowed his ribs and took advantage of his pain to break free. Being left in a foreign hospital is a stupid thing that once in a lifetime is enough. He actually used his height advantage to grab my phone and unlocked it with his fingerprint in one go. The familiar lock screen wallpaper was our photo from Venice last year, reminding me that the first thing to do when I get back is to change the password. Must we have a Cold War until the day of departure? He scrolled through my contacts. Ethan's action of easily unlocking my phone was smooth and natural, just like he had done countless times over the past 5 years. The moment the screen lit up, I stared at our lock screen photo from the Maldives last year and suddenly realized how ridiculous I was. Even the password was still his birthday. All right, he said, shaking my phone with that effortless smile on his lips. Are we going to have a Cold War until the vacation day? Vacation? I snatched back my phone. Has Ethan forgotten that our current relationship is so awkward that even sharing an elevator would be uncomfortable? He suddenly leaned closer, his breath spraying on my ear. Do you really want a divorce, my wife? I stepped back half a step, my high heels crushing the moonlight on the ground. Do you think I'm joking? In such a hurry to divorce? Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist, a shadow flashing in his eyes. Could it be that there's another man? He sneered. Don't even think about it, in this lifetime, you. Brother Ethan. Vivian's cloyingly sweet voice suddenly interrupted. Can I go to Italy with you guys? I couldn't help but raise my eyebrows. I have to admit, Vivian's skill at clinging and pestering is truly astonishing. Ethan was clearly taken aback, then frowned. Sorry, this is a trip for us as a couple. I'll be very quiet. Vivian hurriedly stepped forward, her fingers clutching Ethan's sleeve. I absolutely won't disturb you. I can stay in my own room, and I speak Italian very well. I can even be a translator. I looked at her chattering mouth and suddenly felt it was utterly absurd. Over the past 6 months, this woman has been like a plaster that can't be shaken off, always precisely ruining my alone time with Ethan. Fine, let her accompany you then. I shook off Ethan's hand, my high heels making crisp sounds on the cobblestone path. Anyway, I don't have the time. Even 1 more second is disgusting. My wrist was suddenly grabbed with force, and Ethan took 3 steps in 2 to block me. The moonlight cast shadows from his brow bones into his eye sockets, making them look particularly deep. Of course, vacations are meant for couples to go together. I crossed my arms, looking amusedly at Vivian not far away, who looked aggrieved. She was biting her lower lip, her eyes red, looking just like an abandoned small animal. Are you sure you won't take her? I lifted my chin. She's about to cry, can you bear it? Ethan didn't even turn his head, his thumb rubbing my wrist bone. Why would I take her? She's not my wife. The night breeze brought Vivian's suppressed sobs. I suddenly remembered that rainy night in Rome 6 months ago, when I, pregnant, lay in the emergency room, only to receive Ethan's message. Vivian fainted, I'm returning to the country first. Last time, leaving you abroad was my fault. Ethan suddenly softened his voice, his fingertip brushing over the ring mark on my ring finger. Because Vivian has no relatives in the country, and you're so outstanding. Does being outstanding mean I deserve to be betrayed? I jerked my hand back, the ring mark burning painfully. Ethan suddenly pulled me into his arms, the scent of sandalwood overwhelming me. It's settled then, I'll arrange a private jet when the time comes. He kissed the top of my head, his tone like coaxing a tantruming child. All right, stop making a fuss. Vivian's crying finally couldn't be held back. Over Ethan's shoulder, I saw her lifting her skirt and running away, her pearl earrings drawing a flustered arc in the moonlight. At this moment, Ethan's phone vibrated. With one arm around me, he took out his phone with the other hand. The moment the screen lit up, I clearly saw the message from Vivian on the lock screen notification. Ethan, my heart hurts so much. He looked down at the message, even subconsciously frowning, his thumb hovering over the screen for a moment, as if hesitating whether to reply. I sneered and broke free from his embrace. Ethan probably thought I had calmed down, thinking that this divorce would end without a result. Just like every previous quarrel, as long as he slightly lowered his stance, I would obediently return to his side. But this time, it was different. Seeing my cold expression, he reached out and rubbed the top of my head, his tone gentle almost to the point of deception. "When you've calmed down, move back home, okay?" He whispered in my ear, his warm breath brushing my neck, like a familiar bewitchment. "I haven't touched your things at home, even your favorite tea set is still in its place." His voice carried a familiar bewitchment, as if certain I would eventually compromise. Half a month passed quickly. During this half-month, Ethan acted as if he didn't take the divorce seriously at all, still sending me messages from time to time. "I've readjusted the Italy itinerary, booked that castle hotel you like. Passed by your favorite dessert shop today, they have a new chestnut Mont Blanc. It's getting colder, shall I have the aunt send over that camel coat in your wardrobe?" At first, I would coldly reply, "We're divorced, I'm not going on vacation with you." But he turned a deaf ear, as if I were just throwing a tantrum, and the next day he would send new messages as usual, his tone natural as if we had never separated. Later, I simply couldn't be bothered to reply, but he was relentless. If I didn't reply, he would keep sending messages, even suddenly sending a voice message in the middle of the night, his voice low and husky with a smile. "What, doesn't your ex-husband even deserve an MM?" I was so annoyed that I occasionally perfunctorily replied with an MM or ah, and he became even more enthusiastic, directly having someone deliver a bouquet of white roses to the company the next day, with the card flamboyantly written, "MM, ah, that'll do." I was so angry that I threw the flowers straight into the trash can. The day the divorce certificate came through, I went back to my parents' house. At the dinner table, Dad served me a bowl of soup, his tone calm. "With the Shin family, don't make the relationship too strained." My hand holding the spoon paused. Mom sighed, "The business cooperation is deeply tied, your dad isn't blaming you, it's just." "I know," I said, lowering my head to stir the soup. "I won't make things difficult for the family." After a moment of silence, I suddenly spoke, "Mom, Dad, do you think I'm too willful?" Slap. Dad suddenly slapped the table, making the dishes rattle lightly. "How are you willful?" He frowned tightly. "Your mom and I aren't deaf or mute, that boy and that Vivian have issues, as we saw at the birthday banquet that day." Mom also put down her chopsticks and held my hand. "If you're divorced, so be it. If Ethan truly cared, he wouldn't let you suffer such grievances." My nose tingled, and I quickly lowered my head to drink the soup. "Since you're divorced, my daughter deserves better." Mom put down her teacup, her tone brooking no argument. "That nephew from the old Zhou family just returned from abroad, he's young and already a senior executive at an investment bank. I'll arrange for you to meet next week." Dad, flipping through a financial magazine beside her, added without looking up, "And your Uncle Lee's son, who started his own business, and his company is about to go public." I was both amused and exasperated. "Mom, Dad, I just got divorced." "So what if you're divorced?" Mom glared at me. "Do you still want to wait for that boy Ethan to come to his senses?" I was speechless. After the divorce cooling-off period, the court's divorce certificate finally came through. I arranged for a courier to send it to Ethan. Coincidentally, Mom's best friend, Aunt Lynn, introduced a young talent, Martin, the CTO of a multinational tech company, gentle and elegant with remarkable conversation skills. Aunt Lynn enthusiastically matchmaking. "Martin is going on a business trip to Switzerland next week. Why not go with him to relax, Anya? And deepen your understanding along the way?" I hesitated for a moment but ultimately didn't refuse. I arranged the company's affairs, then packed my luggage and flew to Switzerland with Martin. At the same time, my parents also set off for a vacation in Sonia, ostensibly to relax. The snowy scenery in Switzerland was breathtakingly beautiful, and Martin was gentlemanly and considerate, arranging the itinerary comfortably and freely. On the evening of the third day, while we were dining at a snow mountain restaurant, my phone suddenly rang. It was my best friend Sophie. "Anya, something's wrong." Sophie's voice was anxious. "Ethan went to your company and made a scene." The fork in my hand clattered onto the plate. "What?" Sophie spoke rapidly. He seemed to have been telling his friends that he was going to Italy with you for vacation, but you blocked him, and he couldn't contact you, thinking you were still angry. She paused, her tone becoming strange. Then, he actually went to Italy with Vivian. You blocked them, so you didn't see Vivian's Facebook posts those days, Sophie sneered on the phone. During those days in Italy, she posted 9 grid photos every day, each with Ethan in them, making it seem like Ethan was her husband. I held the phone, my fingertips cold, but my heart was strangely calm. Let her post if she wants, I said lightly. It has nothing to do with me anymore. Sophie sighed. The problem is, Ethan only really panicked when he received the divorce certificate you sent. It turned out that he thought I was just sulking until that divorce certificate was placed in front of him in black and white, and he realized I was serious this time. He looked for me like crazy, but my parents kept their mouths shut, even refusing him at the door when he came in person. He went to the coffee shop I frequent, the gym, even the yoga class I signed up for, but everyone just shook their heads, saying they didn't know where I was. Until one of his clients was on a business trip in Switzerland and happened to see you, Sophie said subtly. That client thought Ethan knew about your divorce and casually mentioned to him that he saw you vacationing with another man in Switzerland. As a result, Ethan's face changed on the spot. Sophie sneered. His client was quite surprised and said, "Oh? So you didn't know?" I couldn't help but scoff. How ironic. He paraded around Italy with Vivian, but only after I completely disappeared did he belatedly realize that this time, I wouldn't turn back. When he came to see me the day before yesterday, he was in a pretty bad state, Sophie tooted on the phone. Unshaven, hair messy, completely unlike his usual elite self. She imitated Ethan's tone, lowering her voice. He asked me, "Why is she vacationing with another man?" I sneered. How did you reply? I said, "Don't you know why?" Sophie chuckled. You had the nerve to take Vivian to Italy, and that Vivian shows off her love with 9 grid photos every day. Why can't she go to Switzerland with another man? There was silence on the other end of the phone for a few seconds, then Sophie said subtly, however, he said he went to Italy on business, not with Vivian. Vivian followed him on her own. She paused. I don't think he's lying. My fingers gripping the phone tightened. So what? I asked calmly. What does that change? I think he might come back to find you, Sophie sighed. Not might, he's already here. My heart skipped a beat, and before I could answer, the room's doorbell suddenly rang. I nodded stiffly, walked to the door, and looked out through the peephole. A familiar face appeared in my view. Ethan. He was indeed in a bad state, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin, making him look decadent and disheveled. But those eyes were fixed on the door panel, as if he could see through it directly to me. I took a deep breath and opened the door. He stared at me, his voice hoarse. Having fun? I looked at him expressionlessly. Ethan came all the way here just to ask this? His gaze went over my shoulder and landed on Martin, his eyes instantly turning cold. Who is he? Martin handed me a cup of hot cocoa and asked gently, "Do you need me to stay?" I shook my head, took the cup, and warmth spread from my palm. No need, I said, gazing at the snow peaks of the Alps outside the window. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I smiled. This is my ex-husband. If you need anything, just call me, I'm next door. I turned and went to the kitchen, poured a cup of hot cocoa for Ethan, and then gestured for him to follow me to the balcony. The Swiss night was quiet, with the distant outline of the Alps undulating in the moonlight, like a silent painting. He took the cup, his fingertips slightly cool, but his gaze remained fixed on my face. I need an explanation, he said hoarsely. We're divorced, I stated calmly. He stared at me blankly, a flash of disbelief in his eyes. Just because I left you in Italy last time? I lowered my head and took a sip of cocoa, the sweet aroma spreading on my tongue. Let's just say it is, I said lightly. How can you be so heartless? He suddenly clenched the cup, his knuckles turning white. Abandoning our marriage of so many years so easily? His voice tightened. What do you take me for? As my ex-husband, I looked up at him, the corners of my lips slightly raised. Since you're my ex-husband, what I do with other men is none of your business, is it? He stood up abruptly, the cup banging on the table. Why? He stared at me fixedly. Have you fallen for someone else? That man just now? I chuckled lightly. Ethan, you've been with Vivian for so long that you think everyone else is as filthy as you too. The night breeze passed, and his expression solidified bit by bit. I stood up and looked directly into his eyes. When you were parading around with Vivian, why didn't you ask yourself what you took me for? Isn't it too late to question me now? I turned to go inside. He suddenly grabbed me, with such force that I almost stumbled. 20 years of childhood sweethearts, 5 years of marriage, his voice was hoarsely unlike himself, his eyes red. Just because I left you in Italy that time, you want to divorce me? His fingers tightly gripped my wrist, as if afraid that if he let go, I would disappear completely. What am I to you in your heart? He gritted his teeth, each word squeezed out from his chest. Am I such a casual person to you? Someone you can summon and dismiss at will? Do you even have a heart? Do you know how much I was looking forward to this Italy trip? His voice began to tremble. How much planning did I do for this itinerary? His breathing was rapid, his eyes glistening with tears, like a wronged and angry child. I was even thinking, after we reconcile this time, we'll have a child and live a good life. He laughed self-mockingly. I even started having someone design the child's room. His eyes were red beyond belief, staring at me fixedly, as if to engrave my appearance into his bones and blood. I was planning our future like a fool, his voice lowered, almost murmuring. But what about you? Have you long since stopped wanting me? Is it fun to toy with me? His voice was hoarse, his eyes surging with suppressed anger and hurt. I looked at him quietly without answering. The sunlight fell on his face, making his expression exceptionally clear, brows tightly furrowed, eyes red, lips trembling. That face, always so effortless, now only showed grievance and brokenness. I turned around and gently placed the cold hot cocoa on the table. The bottom of the ceramic cup touched the glass tabletop, making a soft click. Ethan, I spoke with my back to him, my voice very soft. Do you know why, after you left me in Italy last time, I stayed there alone for another week? He was stunned. The air seemed to freeze, and even the sound of breathing became clear. I turned around and looked at his suddenly pale face. I was pregnant, on the steps of the Spanish Square. I encountered a bag-snatching thug, and had a miscarriage. When I was having surgery in the hospital, the nurse asked if I wanted help contacting family. Do you know how desperate I was at that time? His pupils contracted violently, and he seemed nailed to the spot, his breathing stagnant. Later, I found out, I said softly, you rushed back because Vivian fainted from anemia. His lips trembled, but he couldn't utter a word. Outside the window, the snow peaks of the Alps stood silently in the moonlight, witnessing this belated judgment. I gazed at the continuous snow scenery outside, the Alps shimmering with cold silver light under the moon. I don't know when it started, I said softly, that the boy who used to run only to me had someone else in his eyes. Ethan stiffened in place, his breathing stagnant. You would leave me alone in the cinema because Vivian was sick. When both she and I needed you, you chose to be with her. I smiled. Clearly, in the past, you would be nervous for half a day even if I had a cold. His fingers dug deep into his palm, knuckles white, and a hoarse voice squeezed out of his throat, Ethan, I interrupted him, my voice unbelievably calm. The moment you left me in Italy without looking back, I suddenly felt relieved. His pupils suddenly contracted, as if struck hard by something, and he swayed. Ethan stared at me blankly, disbelief surging in his eyes. So, after you returned from Italy last time, you were already prepared to divorce me? I nodded calmly, yes. You didn't even notice, I smiled lightly. I've already moved my things back home. His expression suddenly went blank, as if struck hard, his breathing stagnant for a moment. That day, his voice was hoarsely out of shape. The day you returned from Italy, You were accompanying your Vivian to the hospital for a physical examination, I finished for him, the corners of my lips curling into a sarcastic arc even though you know, I've never liked her. Ethan suddenly rushed forward and grabbed my wrist, the force painfully strong. No. I've never liked Vivian. His voice carried an unprecedented panic. Anya, I was wrong, I really didn't know that such a thing would happen that day. I looked quietly at his reddened eyes, the brows and eyes that once made my heart flutter now filled with pain. Not all hurts are worth forgiving, I said, turning to push open the glass door of the balcony. Just like not all loves can last to the end. Martin stood in the living room, holding my coat, his gaze quietly looking over. I walked towards him, and behind me came Ethan's extremely hoarse voice, Anya. I didn't look back. The night wind carried the chill of the snow mountains as it swept by, and between Ethan and me, it was finally completely over. Later, Sophie told me that Ethan sat in the hotel lobby in Switzerland all night and left only at dawn. Meanwhile, Martin and I continued with the original itinerary, strolling in the town at the foot of the snow mountains, drinking hot chocolate in a warm cafe, and watching the morning mist by the frozen lake. Life finally returned to its proper track, calm, free, with no more waiting and no more disappointment. Assumed based on context, and so, I embraced a new chapter, leaving behind the shadows of the past.